Bro, rather than us doing this beggy Christianity where we pray for God to do something or lead to a great outcome, but we don't actually execute to the best of our abilities, what would happen if we switch to becoming so undeniably good that they have to respect the outputs in the name of Jesus? That's what I want to talk about today. Welcome to another episode of the Reasons podcast with Tolu Talks.
And Arnold Reasons. Reason with us, bro.
Coming out shooting, bro.
Fully.
I've got a video clip that I want us to watch, but I think,
Okay.
you know, bro, I'm a man who believes in prayer, and I think that it's not an either or, just to quickly settle the case, right? It's not either you pray or you become so undeniably good. I believe that there is a place that we should get to and we should really push towards where both exist, right? I.e., we pray, you know, the saying that they always say, like, pray like everything depends on him, but then work like everything depends on you, right?
Yeah.
And I think it's one of those ones where it's like our journey as believers is by faith, right? We're constantly talking about faith. Pray, believe, and have an expectation for God to do the impossible. Amazing, bro. I'm all for it, right? But how about we start to examine what we do with the possible, right? Because I think even with stories and examples like the 2 fish and 5 loaves, right? He took what they've had and he multiplied it, right? And one of the things that's played in my mind, just kind of reflecting on that for a few years, is what happens if I give 100 fish and 2,000 loaves? Do you get what I'm saying?
I think it's like, what are you giving God to work with?
Absolutely. And I just think I do believe in the impossibilities and the amazing, miraculous, the things that we can't explain that he's able to do. But I think that there is so much room for us to multiply some of the things we actually see by actually doing the work that we're capable of doing. And that's what this is about for me, bro.
I think it's so true because, you know, there's loads of the cliches that, like, you know, the supernatural is you're natural and God's super. And there's all this kind of stuff that people talk about. But I think it's just so true because even with the story of the talents, which we come back to so much, you know, they still had to do their part to multiply it. Like they still had a job to do. So I think it's a really interesting thing of, like, what are you actually praying for as well? Do you know what I mean? Because when you look at Solomon, for example, he asked for wisdom to rule the people. Yeah. He still had to do something with the wisdom. And that's what's funny about Solomon, is that a lot of the wisdom he didn't do anything with in the end because, you know, he had like 1,000 wives. But anyway, I think it's important that we're also praying for the right things. So it is that thing of what are you praying for? You know, and then what work are you doing to do your part? I think those two bits are so important.
100. And so the thing that kind of got me onto this kind of track of thinking is, as you know, the Olympics is a recent event. I didn't watch a single piece of it, so I'm just going to put that out there. I did see loads of different clips on the internet about how disrespectful, let's just say.
The opening ceremony.
Some of the things were in the opening ceremony, and I think, did something come up in the closing ceremony? I don't know.
I think so too.
But I came across a few different videos to do with a particular athlete. Her name is Sydney McLaughlin.
Yeah.
So she's apparently a believer, and she won gold, and she set a brand new world record, and
beating her own past record, by the way.
I didn't know that part.
Yeah. Sydney is gangster, like absolute gangster.
Know that part.
Yeah. I think she's beat her own record like 6 times or something wild like that.
Come on, let's do it. And now you
she's
know where we're going.
Yeah. I think I know.
But she, there's a few things before I roll the clip. One of the things which was interesting was that I watched one video that was talking about how apparently at one point she was actually encouraged or discouraged from mentioning the name of Jesus so much. But she ain't getting it. She kept on doing it.
So I'm a champion. You listen. You listen to what I say. Like, forget you guys.
But I'm gonna roll this clip, and then I want us to talk a bit about just that whole idea and some of the fallout, I think, conversations around it. And for those who may be listening audibly, you will get to hear the clip. But if you didn't know, there's a chance for you to see the clip, to see our faces and all of that stuff, because we run these podcasts also on YouTube. So if you're looking it up, at Reason to Behold. And if you are watching on YouTube, like, subscribe, help this to go further. Wherever you're listening, like, share, do the stuff. Please, it helps us a lot. So let me roll this clip. Okay, we're on, yeah?
Yeah.
But there's a gentleman standing up in the back.
Thanks very much, Brian Mann with NPR. Sydney, this is for you, and I apologize. I'm not sure that I heard you correctly in the mix zone. It was really loud. But did you speak to your faith there and the role of faith in your competition? And if I just completely misunderstood you, then I apologize.
Yeah, no, I mean, I credit all that I do to God. He's given me a gift. He's given me a drive to just want to continue to improve upon myself. And I have a platform and I want to use it to glorify him. And so whenever I step on the track, it's always the prayer of God, let me be the vessel in which you're glorified, whatever the result is, how I conduct myself, how I carry myself, not just how I perform. And so it's just freedom in knowing that regardless of what happens, he's going to get the praise through me. And yeah, that's why I do what I do.
So, bro, I think where was I when I don't even remember where I was when I saw the clip, but the thing that was going through my mind, one of the things was, it's so interesting when you contrast how much weight what you have to say can potentially hold based on your outputs, right? Because if she was someone that came disgustingly last place, she's not even sitting in this room, bro, to have this conversation, right? And I think it's like, it's as believers, and by the way, I'm speaking to myself as much as I'm speaking to everybody listening, right? This is not something that I'm inspired and encouraged and fired up by this too. But I just think that there's just so much room, bro, for us to really examine ourselves on how much are we actually doing the work to be excellent at whatever it is that we're doing, right? The bar is so low in 2024 across so many different industries, spaces, and places that we are. Bro, I mean, the mortgage business, right? When I look at some of the feedback that I've received from clients, when I look at some of the things that I intentionally do, bro, a lot of what I've done, what I did to start off with was doing the basic, but then doing a little bit more, right? And already from there, it was leading to results, feedback, and a greater experience for a lot of people. Then you now ask yourself, what happens if I say, okay, I'm not going to just do an inch above what everybody else is doing, but I'm actually going to do excellent according to what I'm capable of. We spoke about this a few episodes back, potential versus doing a bit above average. And I just feel like, I just think there's just so much opportunity to really multiply, I think, how much glory we bring to God.
I think it's so true, because when I was watching it, I was thinking, I wonder what those two girls on either side think about what she's saying right now. I wonder what everybody in the crowd thinks about what she's saying right now. But bro, all of them have to just shut up and listen, because she's the champion. She's the one that won. It doesn't matter what they think or not think. And bro, even if the Olympics decides not to show her interview or whatever it is, like, the people in that room still had to sit and listen and be impacted by what she said. So I think you're so right. Like, what we achieve with what we have is going to determine the position that we have and the influence that we have. Even when we think about, like, Daniel, for example, it said Daniel was 10 times better than all the other people in his area. And that's why when it comes down to it, whichever God you're going to pray to, and you're not going to worship the king, whatever, they're still going to listen to you, because you're still the best at what you do. You see what I mean? So it's just like, it's so important that we are excellent at what we do. Joseph was like the second in the nation, but he'd spent all his time being excellent. He was excellent in Potiphar's house. All of that time, he was excellent in the prison. So, like, that's so important that we are good at what we do, and we can have that influence, because people respect the fact that you're good at what you do.
Yeah, for real, man. Barriers. What do you think the barriers are to this, bro?
I think when you were talking about the mortgage business, one of the things that I was thinking about was consistency. So one of the things is, like, it's one thing to have, like, a good year, a good year. Okay, I've done well for a year. But when you look at some of the biggest companies in the world, bro, they've been doing what they do for decades.
Yeah.
It's not a, flash in the pan crypto coin. I'm up, now I'm not. Like, no, it's consistent, right? It's consistency that's going to make the massive difference. And I think everybody can put that extra effort in for, 2 days, 3 days, maybe a year. But can you be consistent for 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, consistently being that good at what you do and consistently giving that kind of level of effort? That's where I think we all fall down, is the consistency.
I hear it, man.
What do you think are some of the barriers?
I agree with that. I also wonder whether we indirectly have too small a view of God because we have too small a view of ourselves and what he's put in our hands. Because, like, ultimately, I think I'm just thinking of Job. Who made man? Who made his eyes? Who is it? So ultimately, even the things that we do possess, the skills, the abilities, the capabilities, the root cause, the thing that it goes back to is him, right? And therefore, the best of the best that we have to offer. This is the interesting thing about pride, right? Is that pride is like pretty stupid because it's like the best of the best that you have to offer still
this is nothing.
Somewhere roots back to him, right? Because he made us. We didn't make ourselves. And I think one of the places we trip up sometimes is potentially in false humility, i.e. having a mindset of, no, woe is me, just whatever God wills. And I get it, because it's like, I don't think it comes from a bad place, right? I just think it's not necessarily. I think because I've been guilty of it myself, where at times I've almost like just adopted the mindset historically where I felt like there was something wrong with me even being able to acknowledge and admit the gifting or the skills or the ability or even my part that I've played in a particular thing. But I think the disconnect where I think I've tripped up historically, and I know and I believe other people trip up now, is in assuming that it's by mentioning or by saying those things or by having the belief in those things that's the problem, when really the issue is disconnecting it from God. Because
I guess for me it depends on where does that come from, because that's not an idea that comes from God himself.
No, it's not. And I think this is something that I think typically comes from tradition and from ideas and beliefs that we have about what holiness looks like, right? And what being a saint and a believer and a disciple looks like versus the actual reality. I think of the example, one of the things that freed me, I remember years ago hearing a sermon where they were speaking about the verse in somewhere in the Pentateuch, where it speaks about how I think Moses was the meekest man on the earth.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And then the person connecting it with the fact that who actually wrote this?
Moses wrote that.
Right? And I think what was expanded on was the fact that meekness, humility, all of those types of things isn't just about like downplaying. It's about having an accurate perception and view of yourself, which is also connected to the root cause, i.e. God, right? And I think that is a big stumbling block because, yeah, man, I if we came to terms with the truth and even being confident and bold enough to walk in the truth of how he has designed us, the skills, the giftings, the things he has placed within us. But yet at the same time, just like Sydney did, we can sit down and declare that I know that everything that I am comes from him, right? That's when I think we start striking a new level, which is highly attractive, bro. Highly attractive. Like imagine how powerful your witness. And again, I know, don't get me wrong. I know that the evangelism is not just about the words we speak and the accolades that we have to show, right? It's a spiritual thing. But, right? Sometimes a little sugar helps the medicine to go down.
100%.
Right?
100%. 100%.
And
it's
equally,
bait for a reason. It's
and
bait
equally,
for a reason.
If the thing is distasteful, right? It can deter. So if I am the person who has a terrible track record, and yet here I am telling you to come here in the name of Jesus to join this faith in this kingdom where I'm telling you life is better over here. And you're the person sitting over there scratching your head thinking, no, but I'm not the most intelligent person in the world. But when I do 1 + 1, I can see that things look a little bit better over here than they do over there. So it's like it creates an obstacle and a barrier, right?
There was something that you said about where do we get this almost like this false humility from? And you said it's kind of traditional. And there's that verse in the Bible that says about how the traditions of men have basically like made the power of God to no effect. And that's in a lot of ways what we're doing. You know, we're denying the power of God. We're not using that power because of our traditions, because our traditions say we can't speak that way, we can't be confident that way, we can't be this, we can't be that. You know, we're poor but we're proud and all this stuff. It's like, but why is that what we should be doing as Christians? That's not biblical. You don't see anyone in the Bible that was really just like average Joe. You know, like these people, like they did mighty exploits. It said those that know their God will be strong and do mighty exploits. Like, this is what we're meant to do. You know, like even in your ordinary, God wants us to be extraordinary in our ordinary. Like that's how it's meant to be. But we actually give that up and we don't take that on and we don't do anything with it for some silly reasons, because traditionally this is what we're told we should do. So we need to be really, really careful about what we do with tradition.
Yeah, man. Yeah. No, for sure, bro. For sure.
And I think for me, a good yardstick of it is like, you know, when God made creation, he looked at what he said and he said, okay, it was good. It was good. It was good. When we look back over what we've delivered, can we honestly be like, that was good? You know, heart of hearts, can we really say, okay, I did good? And a lot of the Olympians, what they talk about, like you see some people who were second or third and they are celebrating like they got gold. And they're like, I know I couldn't have done anything more to get to a better result. I left everything out there in my training, in my performance. They said, okay, this might be the most that I can do. So I'm happy. I've achieved what I could. There's no more I could do. Yeah. And there are so many of them, you know, and we've like devalued getting bronze. Getting bronze means you're the third best in the world. In the world. Like, I don't think we can fathom what that really means and what you've given up to get to that place. So that's why when you see so many of them in the interviews, they're like, I gave everything that I could. Like, there's no more I could have done to do anything better. None. And so many of them are so happy with the fact that it was good. You know, they can honestly say, I did all I can and it was good. How many times can we honestly say we've done all we can and it was good? I'm going to say, for me personally, I don't think it's 20% of the time. For me personally, I can look back and say, okay, is it 20? Mate, I don't know. It's definitely not half. Definitely not half. Definitely not half. You know?
And you know what? It's interesting because whilst you were speaking, I thought about another barrier. I think that we often very, very drastically underestimate the cost it takes to be excellent. And to get the excellent outcome. Because it's like, we'll see somebody like Sydney on a stage right now having this conversation and doing the after part where it's like, let me tell you about God. Let me tell you about Jesus in this way and how that's the root cause. But actually, what we don't see is, what did the last 2, 3, 4 years look like?
Forget that, bro. It's like 10 years. Right? For most of these Olympians, it's like 10 years. It's not
this is just me talking about how was it 4 years between the Olympics or whatever it is? 5, 6. What does the last, like you said, 10, 15 years, what does that lifestyle look like? How many things did she have to say no to in order to get the inch that takes her that little bit further forward that separates her from where she once was? What about the things that she had to sacrifice? Not just the things she said no to, but also the things she said yes to. The time maybe she was waking up, the number of times she did things that she did not want to do, right? Why? Because the price set before her was worthwhile, right? And if you want to use biblical terms and biblical phrases, for the joy set before her, she enjoyed her cross, right?
I don't think most people even know what excellence is. I don't think we really know what that is, what that looks like you said, what it takes. Because, bro, it is hard work. When I studied abroad in America and I saw the detail that they went into in practice, that's when I realized I'm not going to know MBA. I realized it there and I said, I'm not going to know MBA. Because, bro, these guys have been doing this since they were 4 years old, 5 years old, whatever it is. Like, the things that the repetitions that they've done is crazy. And, you know, Kobe Bryant, he was talking about how this is how he sees practice. He says most people will wake up at, 8, 9 o'clock, go to practice at 10, 11 o'clock, and then come back later at like 5, 6 o'clock. And they've done 2 practices. Yeah. So like, okay, they've done more than most of us are ever going to do in a day. He says, I wake up at 4 o'clock. Yeah. I go practice for like 2 hours. Yeah. Have my rest, go do a weight session. So before most people have even done 1 session, he's already done 2. Yeah. So in a day, he's doing 3 or 4, and most people are doing 2. And he says, imagine you add that up over a year, right? I've done 2 or 3 times more the sessions. Add that up over 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. By the time we're 5 years in, they can never catch up to me because I'm just so far ahead.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And that's what it takes to be excellent. And a lot of basketball players say that when you look at Kobe Bryant, he was average. His body was average. He was 6'6", which is like an average basketball player. He doesn't have big hands. He can't jump super high. But they say Kobe is great because he pushed his body to the maximum of what he could get out of it. And that's what I want us to be able to say, like, okay, I pushed the talents that I've been given to the absolute maximum. We don't know what that looks like. We don't.
All right. Final wake up and shake up. To the person that's listening, bro, and they're like, okay, T, I hear you. Arnold, I hear you. Right? I'm provoked. What is your, what would you say to them? How would you encourage and I guess even exhort them to take the next step? And what is the next step too?
I feel like the world we live in, we get provoked a lot.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Like, social media, it's provoking us all the time. Yeah. But I feel like we're not provoked to the point where we take action. I feel like we get all like het up, we have our debates, we have our conversations. Yeah. And then we don't do anything. Then we go put on Netflix and watch whatever it is. Like, we don't do anything with it. So my real challenge would be, if you're feeling that stirring, what are the things that you can take action with and that you can do? What can you do with that stirring that's going to turn into something that is worthwhile?
That's so good. It's so good and it's so relevant and so true, bro, because you're absolutely right. Like, even that thing that I mentioned about the whole overstimulated a few weeks back, right? Getting, bro, even still till now, right? The way that I feel about my YouTube has really been different lately, in a good way.
Wow.
Because it's like, don't get me wrong, the algorithm's serving me a bunch of stuff which is somewhat useful and all of that kind of stuff, but it's like, I'm finding myself skipping over so many more videos now because I'm just like, it feels like noise. So yeah, to the point, I think so true. Take action. The only thing I would add to it, from I guess my point, is it doesn't have to be complicated, right? I think it's choose what the goal is and figure out what are the small steps, the small regular habits that if you introduce, the one change, the two changes, that if you introduced would put you somewhere closer to achieving the goal, and just start with that and then build in stages, right? Because I think sometimes we overcomplicate what it takes to achieve some of these big goals, man. I think we we spend a lot of time thinking, okay, so what are the 1,000 steps that I need to put in place? And then we get overwhelmed by it, and it's kind of like, well, I don't have any ability to do. And then we just put off. And then we scroll on to the next thing that's going to hype us up for another minute and go through the same cycle. Whereas one thing that I think has helped me a lot of the time is choose what the goal is. Start with the one step. What's the one habit? And just do that habit, like you said, consistently, faithfully. And then over time, you will find that you're in rhythm and in emotion. And you're like, okay, what's one more thing I can add to it? And then over time, it starts to snowball to the point where you're now doing all of the relevant habits to get to the outcome. So, yeah.
I think it's that thing of be faithful with the little.
Yeah, man.
Just be faithful with the little.
Yeah.
Like, it will layer up to what it layers up to, but be faithful with the little.
Agreed.
Thank you guys so much for listening. And go and find your thing to be faithful with. Catch you on the next episode. Peace.